You raised the issue of Python, and this has been a huge issue in operating system distributions because of the incompatible change from Python 2 to 3. There are a few distributions that have taken the attitude that they will stick forever at Python 2 and not use 3. Others have dropped 2 and have switched to 3, and some still ship both. I read an interview with Python's author a couple of weeks ago, and it appears that he now regrets introducing that incompatibility. It broke a lot more things than people expected. And if you're going to rely on a Python installation on someone's machine, you have to know whether it's Python 2 or Python 3. So that's one barricade. The second one is that we try hard to ensure that all of the executable software is available on all of the platforms that are on the DVD. Notably, if it works on Unix flavors, including Linux and Mac OS and FreeBSD and so on, we should also have an executable for Microsoft Windows. And Windows, of course, has always been the bugbear in writing portable software. And then the final thing for executables is that they have to be designed to be position independent when they need to find files. That is, they cannot assume a hard-coded path somewhere on the file system, which was traditionally how software was written. Carl has worked quite hard to make sure that everything that goes in the form of executables knows how to use ... from the binary to a subdirectory that contains library files and so on. But a lot of software just doesn't fit into that category and would have to be rewritten to make it acceptable to TechLive.
Well, I'll take a turn. I just wanted some clarity on some of the things that were said, and then I have a reflection of my own. Nelson, you said cannot assume a hard-coded path to included files. That's like when tech executes a \input command. And I think that dating back to early days, this meant that there was a flat namespace for leaf files. Okay, you're nodding your head. Okay.
Yeah, but it isn't just for text files. It's for files that say a Python program may need to include a Python
I totally get
package.
it.
And that's a huge can of worms because the Python code base is enormous. It's millions and millions of lines of code and thousands of packages. And there's
well, is that to say that in Python it's commonplace for files to have file name collisions at the level of leaf file names?
Well, it's not so much file name collisions, although I suspect there probably are, especially names like makefile and readme. But it's that the executable program has to be runnable from wherever it is installed in the file system. See, when you install Python through an operating system distribution, it's put in say, user bin Python on a Unix system and has user live Python something to find its files, and it knows and has hard-coded paths to those. But we would need the ability to host it at any point in the file system, and most software doesn't fall into that category. TechLive is exceptional that it works that way, and a small number of other programs do as well. The way commercial packages like Maple, Mathematica, and MATLAB handle this is they have a very large shell script wrapper around the executable that uses variables that set the local installation path. And so once it's installed on a local system, it works and it can be reinstalled in a different location and those paths will be updated. But it's a lot of work to maintain something like that. And most software authors probably aren't willing to do it.
I understand what you're saying. Okay, Jonathan.
Okay,
one thing we've forgotten to mention here today, I think we discussed it in earlier meetings, but it could have also been on mailing lists, of which I'm on a great many. And that is the issue that for Unicode support, there are three major Unicode libraries: IBM's, Apple's, and Microsoft's. So Microsoft's in Windows, Apple's on Mac OS, and IBM's on all of the Unix family other than Mac OS. And the problem there is that Luatech and Xtech work by handing off a word to that library layer and asking for it to come back with a representation for how characters or glyphs are to be placed on the page. And those libraries are platform dependent, and they're also software version dependent. They get updated at arbitrary times, especially as we see more and more operating systems moving towards automated update systems. It becomes very difficult then to achieve reproducibility. And I think for people who need the extended characters of Unicode, which is a good portion of the world's population, especially in Asia, they're going to have to use Xtech or Luatech or their LaTeX equivalents, and they won't be able to get that reproducibility. They might sit on a machine in New Delhi typing in Hindi and send it off to their publisher in London, but one of them has worked on a Mac system and the other's worked on an IBM, on a Microsoft Windows system, and they'll get different line breaking and page breaking. And this, of course, impacts cross-referencing and so on, and is, I think, a pretty substantial problem that we don't have a good solution. The other related thing is that Unicode itself is evolving. Version, I think, 14 has just been announced in draft form to be finalized in September. It's added several thousand new characters and new rules for handling more complex scripts. So we also then have a problem that there are going to be input files that use one of the newly encoded characters in some particular language that particular user has on their computer, but their colleague somewhere else does not. And it'll be rejected as an invalid Unicode character. So it's just a complicated world. Humans have made a mess. We should have all agreed on an alphabetic system thousands of years ago and stuck to it, but of course we haven't.
Well, some people believe that God speaks in English.